Hello everybody, I'm your host, L5, and this is King of the Hill. Hello everybody, this is L5, and this is going to be my first commentary on the Bloons channel. So, yeah. So starting off on Snowy Castle, this series was played in Season 8. So the starting map was Snowy Castle back in the day. So, yeah, we see immediately a difference in strategies here. Mark on the right going for the boats, and Smurf on the other hand going for a 3-0 attack. Now Mark gets up his 0-0 boat there, and looks like he has it on strong. So Smurf, I'd expect to see another attack coming up soon, and yes, he does place the second attack. Now Mark is going to leak a little bit to the pinks, but it's not really going to matter as Smurf is obviously going farms, because that is the attack spot for the farms. Otherwise, you just put it in the middle, and yeah. So Smurf does reveal the farms there, and he does get a 1-0 attack. And I don't really agree with this because a 0-0 attack does pretty much the same thing. 1-0 is like the worst upgrade for attack. So you're saving $210, and yeah. So Mark also reveals the farm, so we have farm versus farm. Smurf sending a lot of greens here because he knows that Mark does not have enough money for his 3-0 attack. So Mark is going to leak quite a bit to that, and he does finally get up his defense. Now Smurf does get up his 3-0 attack immediately on round 6, and I don't really agree with that. You could have kept it as at least a 2-0, and then only upgraded it if Mark decided to rush with greens or blacks or whatever. So Smurf sends some yellows to force Mark to get up the Ring of Fire, and some yellows do get passed. So Mark is not looking so well in lives, but he is up on farm economy slightly, as long as he can fit his farms. She's trying, and it looks like he's just going to go for a 2-0 farm. So Smurf does have a little bit more Bloon eco, so he is going to eventually catch up in farms, as long as nothing weird happens. And so round 10, Mark's starting to get up his mortar, and Smurf should do the same. Yes, there's the mortar. And both players get the signal flare for round 12. Let's see if Mark can fit this last farm, and he can. So Mark is a little bit ahead in farms, but Smurf is catching up. So for round 13, neither player is going to send a rainbow rush, as rushing rainbows on this map, especially versus farms, is not really the best idea. Versus eco, it can work, but not versus farms, because you can just sell 2 farms, get up a Maelstrom, and then you're completely fine. So round 15, is either player going to send ceramics? And we see neither player opting to do so. And now we see that Smurf is actually slightly ahead on farm economy. Now Smurf is being really greedy with the 3-0 attack there. You really need more defense than that. And it looks like he's sending some camo pinks and a camo ceramic as well. But Mark upgrades his boats to camo detection, and he deals with that just fine. Now a lot of players probably would have died to that because they just think, oh, move the mortar for the camo pinks, and then the camo ceramic would already be halfway through the map when it got decamoized. So good job on Mark's part for realizing that Smurf was going to send the camo ceramic. And we see both players getting up a bunch of tack sprayers. Now I don't really agree with this because really tack sprayers, they're not good against the Moab plus the ceramics, and you really need to pop down the ceramics for the Ring of Fire to actually finish it off. So what I like to do is get a single tack sprayer or a couple boats, depending on what towers you have available. A single attack sprayer plus a few ninjas and Smurf does reveal his final tower to be Ninja, as we all expected. And you can just Maelstrom if they send a Moab. That's what I like to do. And it looks like Smurf is choosing to defend here. He's not sending any BFBs. So Smurf gets the Maelstrom, and is he going to need another one? Looks like he is not going to need another Maelstrom for that BFB. And he's going to Savo again, and is he going to Maelstrom twice this time? And he is going to Maelstrom twice to take care of the contents of that next BFB. Looks like he's just Maelstorming a lot here. So his money is not going to be the best. He's selling farms already. And Mark gets the boat pull for the round 23 AI, and Smurf almost dies to the AI Moa, but he gets the Maelstrom at the last possible place. So both players basically selling all their farms. Well, Smurf still has the last farm, but I think he's going to sell it pretty darn soon. There he is. He sold it, and Mark just barely gets the first BFE down. He gets to rush with fast foot on ceramics because there's no way he's defending anything else after that. And Smurf just Maelstorming, and he does die. So Mark does claim the first game, and we'll move on to the next game. Alright, so here in game 2, Smurf has chosen Swamp. Now, Swamp is a map, it can go late game quite easily, and lives do matter a lot on this map. So both players should be looking to no lives lost, probably with farms, because both players are known to go farms quite a bit. So I'm expecting to see farm versus farm here. And both players getting the frag cannons, and round 3, the greens. And both players micro their targeting on their cannon just fine, and neither player is going to leak to round 3. So both players getting the cluster bomb, and what you can do on round 4, going into round 5, with pinks, is you can send enough pinks so that it stops sending right when the round ends, and then the cannon will not have anything to target and it will whiff. As you can see on Mark's side, Smurf actually did this trick, and he got 4 lives on Mark. So Smurf is now at a major advantage in this game, because as I said earlier, Swamp can very easily go to round 40 if, if the players want it to. So round 6 is coming up, both players starting to get their farms, and will we see ninjas? Yes, we will. So Smurf sends some blacks. I'm really surprised Mark isn't sending blacks, and there he goes, he's sending blacks there. And blacks, they can leak, as you can see on Smurf's side. Well, that's just some lag. I'm sure that if they were actually leaking, Smurf would have changed his targeting on his second ninja to first, and then cleaned up those balloons there. So right now, Smurf is still sending blacks, which I'm not really sure why, because Mark is not going to leak to those. He already has 2 ninjas and he just got up a 3rd, so Smurf should really stop sending these blacks. They're not going to do anything. He should start focusing more on his farms. And it looks like that's what he's going to do now. So Mark is not rushing with any regrow blacks and whites or anything of that sort, so Smurf can just sit there with the 2 ninjas and not have to worry about buying a 3rd. So both players getting up a mortar. Regrow leads can be very deadly on this map, and at least a lot of players can leak to it. So getting a birdie stuff right at round 10 is pretty essential, in my opinion. I've leaked a lot of times to regrow leads. It's not really very fun. I really don't recommend it. But so round 13 coming up, will we see a rainbow rush? Looks like Mark just straight up and got his second cluster bomb, whereas Smurf is choosing to be a little bit greedy, and he's only going to buy his cannon if Mark actually sends a rush, which is a lot smarter than what Mark is doing, in my opinion, because really, Mark should be the one being greedy, since he is down on lives, and one of his only chances is for either Smurfblade to mess up, or to send an early rush, like round 20 or 22. And for that you need to have a lot of farms. So I think Mark should definitely be a little bit more greedy, and Smurf, on the other hand, should probably play it a little bit more safe as he is up on lives. But the thing with being greedy, like how Smurf is, um, the cluster bomb is not really that expensive. It's only $800, and if Mark does send a Rainbow Rush, he can just easily buy the cluster bomb in about a few seconds, and everything will be completely fine. And that means that Mark, it's not really worth it for him to rush. So what you really want to do is to make it so that it's not worth it for your opponent to make you buy something. And then they'll just let you be greedy, like Mark is letting Smurf be greedy right now. And yeah, so Mark does actually have the 3-2 farm. You can tell because some of the bananas are giving him $45 instead of $30. And yeah, so Smurf, I'm sure he could afford the 4th tier farm if he sold some of his 2-0 farms, so he's probably going to try to buy that without selling any, and he does. So around 20, there's going to be some ceramics here, and Smurf's defense is not going to do so well versus ceramics. And he's microing his mortar, but will it be enough? I see lots of bloons leaking. And he is going to leak a lot to that. And that's really unfortunate because he just kind of threw away a really big advantage he had in the game of lives. So now it's up to Smurf to rush Mark. And Mark also has the 4-2 farm. And we see a ZOMG from Smurf. And Mark is looking to sabo that as soon as possible. And there he goes. And now he needs to build a bunch of maulers and stuff. You know the drill. And so one of the things that Mark has to avoid at pretty much any cost is to avoid selling his 4th tier farm, because that is his main source of income. And if he sells that, Smurf will be up on so many farms that it's virtually impossible for Mark to come back in the game. And I really think that Mark should counter with like a BFB or two, just to make Smurf spend more money defending rather than rushing, because chances are that's not going to be the end of his rush. And there we see the second ZOMG. Looks like Mark saboed, but only one Moab out of all 16. I do believe there are 16 Moabs in a ZOMG. 15 of them are full speed, so Mark's going to have to mortar stall quite a bit here, a lot more than he'd like to. It looks like bloons are getting through, and he's going to have to mortar stall pretty fast here. And he does... Is he hanging on? And it looks like he is going to hang on. But that's not the end of the rush. There's another ZOMG right there. So he already has the 4 cluster bombs, so he doesn't really need to worry too much about bloon popping power. He just needs a lot of Moab popping power. And he sold all his 2-0 farms. The only thing he can really sell is either his defense or his 4th tier farm, which, as I said earlier, he must avoid doing if he wants to win. And Smurf actually leaks a bit there to around 25 AI, and Mark really needs to sabo really quick. He actually got a 4th tier farm, which, or not a 4th tier farm, a 4th tier bomb, which I don't think is a very good idea because that's $4,000 that you didn't really need to spend right there. So he does sell his 4th tier farm, and there's still another ZOMG on the screen, so it's really hard for me to see Mark winning this at this point. Smurf has just done a really good job at really taking advantage of the fact that Mark is trying to just defend and not counter. What is that, the 4th ZOMG? 4th or 5th? And it looks like Mark is countering with a BFB, but Smurf has enough money for the sabo plus the 4th tier bomb, and he's going to be just fine. And Smurf is up so many farms, he can afford to sell all his farms and then just defend whatever counter Mark has, because there's no way that Mark is defending this last ZOMG. At least I'm pretty sure there's no way. So, right now, Smurf, it's going to be really hard for Smurf to lose this. He's going to have to throw pretty hard if he's going to lose this. So Mark does pop the ZOMG, and he sabos, but it's just not going to be enough. And we see the Moab getting through to the end of his defense. He's just trying to stall, but really, it's not going to do anything. Smurf sees that Mark is basically going to die soon, so he just sells all his farms, just so he has all the money available to him, just in case. And Mark is going to die to the natural Moab, and that is GG. That's a really smart idea of Smurf to just keep sending ZOMGs until Mark either counters or runs out of money. And yeah, so Smurf came back from being at a lives deficit, I guess you'd call it. And yeah, we'll see you in game 3. Alright, so game 3, and Mark chooses Inkblot. Now, Inkblot, there's two things you can do early game. One of them is kind of outdated, and one of them is a little bit cheaper, yet it doesn't really no lives lost by any means whatsoever. You are going to leak quite a bit, and that is with the 3-0 or 3-1 attack. And so the other option, the old one, would be the 3-1 ninja. So let's see if either player does either one. And yeah, so Inkblot, it's a pretty cool map. And it looks like Mark is going for the attack first. And will Smurf do the same? It looks like Smurf is upgrading his ninja, so I expect to see that to be a 3-1 ninja pretty soon. And both players sending pinks. Pinks are going to do a bit more damage to Mark, as you really need the third tier attack to be able to defend pinks at all. Otherwise you're leaking, like what? He just leaked 39 lives? Yeah. And meanwhile, Smurf only leaked 30, and Smurf was actually a little bit greedy there. He didn't get his 3-1 ninja until pretty late into the round. And Mark, he has his defense, he has his farm, he's going to get the Ring of Fire around 6. Looks like he's stalling a little bit. I don't know if that means he doesn't really have enough money for the Ring of Fire or not. I guess we'll see. And does he get the Ring of Fire? Yes, he does. So Smurf opting to get the 3-0 attack right away. And if I were playing, I would not have gotten the 3-0 attack. I would have gotten, say, a 2-0 attack, and then waited to see if Mark would rush me. And if he did, then I'd upgrade it to 3-0. But otherwise, you're just kind of wasting money that you could have used on farms. So as a result, Mark is a little bit ahead in farms. Not by much, but by a little bit. And both players have their Ring of Fire. Nothing's really going to go by that until round 12, basically. And we see a red bloom getting by on Smurf's side, but round 9 started, so you can tell that he's not going to leak. See, he's not going to leak. That's because the round timers, if that red bloom were actually there, the round would have been delayed quite a bit. Yeah, fun fact. Woohoo! So it is round 10, and both players opting to get even more farms. And right now Mark is a little bit ahead in farms, and he does get that last farm. And he is going to leak a little bit to round 10 AI, because he forgot to get the range upgrade for his tech. $100, but is going to save you those leaks. And both players getting up their signal flare immediately. And camo pinks are pretty deadly on this map because there's no really solid mortar spot that'll actually hit most of the pinks. And so both players just farming right now. I don't expect to see a Rainbow Rush, and neither player sends one, just because Rainbow Rushes are pretty easy to defend when you have all those farms to sell. And it looks like both players going for a Bloon Jitsu on round 15 for the ceramics. And right now the farms are even, and Mark just buys the Bloon Jitsu before the round even starts. So he definitely could have saved a little bit of money, gotten his farms earlier, and just baited a rush, basically. Because when you bait a rush, that means that Smurf sent, say, 3 ceramics. That's $900. Plus, you already have the money saved up for the Bloon Jitsu, so you just buy that immediately, and then well, Smurf wasted $900, and yeah. So overall, that's really good for you, the player. But neither player electing to bait a rush or be greedy at all. Um, so Mark is up by 1 farm going into round 17. So definitely going to be interesting game here. Both players have really decent farms, and yeah, I don't expect either player to send a Moab, but hey, you never know. So both players getting up a bunch of attacks, and 3-0 attack plus a Bloon Jitsu plus a Maelstrom is enough to take care of an entire Moab plus the ceramics. So Mark actually gets another farm round 18. So now he's up by 2 farms, which means he's not going to have as much money going into round 20 and BFBs, but he is going to have more income. So as long as he can maintain those farms, he's going to be looking really great. So let's see if he can actually maintain his farms. And there's no way that Mark can send more than 1 BFB and still defend Smurfblade's rush. So I'm expecting him to only send 1 BFB. And there we see it, 1 BFB. Now will he afford the Sabo without selling any farms? That's the question right now. Looks like he has the flash farm, and he does afford it relatively easily. Now I'm kind of surprised at that because he did buy the farm on round 18, and he did send a BFB. Looks like Smurf is sending 2 BFBs. Will Smurf have to sell any farms? Yes, he does. So Smurf down 2 farms, and it looks like he's going to Maelstrom pretty soon. And he does. So we'll Mark Maelstrom. Looks like he Maelstorms a little bit early, and as a result he's going to need 2 Maelstorms for that single BFB. But he didn't have to sell any farms, so it's not going to matter too much. Let's see if he can time it better this time. And looks like that is perfect timing right there. And yeah, so good job on Mark's part, Maelstorming that. And he just barely afforded the flash bomb there, so he's probably going to have to sell at least 1 farm to get up the Sabo there. And he also sends a BFB at Smurf. So both players defending pretty well right now. And so both players do Sabo. This natural Moab is going to be a little bit complicated to deal with, but it shouldn't be too hard. It looks like Mark again Maelstorming a little bit early, and as a result he's going to need 2 Maelstorms. But still, Mark, I'm really impressed by how well he's maintaining his farms. He hasn't had to sell pretty much any farms. He's only sold 1, whereas Smurf has sold 3 2-0 farms, which is like 6 times the amount of farms that Mark has sold. So I think Mark is definitely in the better position here, and both players sending yet another BFB. And let's see if Mark can pull this out. He's definitely in a solid position here. He does Sabo, and he gets the Sabo glitch on one of the Moabs. That's really stupid, in my opinion. Just because he did Sabo right before the BFB broke, there's not really anything he could do different to prevent that. It's just really dumb. And that's going to force him to sell all his farms. And Smurf actually mortar stalling, so he probably got a Sabo glitch as well if he's mortar stalling and double Maelstorming. It looks like he's sending a fast cooldown Ceramic Rush. Mark is just going to Maelstorm that, and then send some camos, forcing Smurf to get up more defense instead of rush. And Mark is going to win that game. That was, honestly, the best Inkblot game I've ever seen. Both players just did a really good job, especially Mark keeping his farms. That was really impressive. And so yeah, so I think Mark is up 2-1, and we'll move on to the next game. Alright, so in game 4, Smurf has chosen Mondrian. Now, I don't like Mondrian. Mondrian is my least favorite map, and I think both players are going to get their ninjas here. I just don't like Mondrian. The AI is just really tough to deal with, as well as the player sent Bloons are kind of awkward to deal with, because the 3-0 cannon isn't exactly great on this map. It looks like Smurf is layering some spaced blues, and Mark is going to leak quite a bit to that. And yeah, so was it worth it? I would say yes. Even though he did sacrifice a small amount of eco, the lives of damage on Mark are greatly appreciated. So that's going to make Mark a lot easier to take down with any rushes, or if he's going eco, that's what he wants. He wants to be up on lives. So round 4, both players have their cluster bomb and their 0-0 ninja. Both players seem to have them strong, which is good. Well, when I play Mondrian, where I put my ninja is a little bit lower than Smurf's, and then I'll micro that from strong to first, and then that'll save a lot of leaks. And unless your cannon whiffs, you're not going to leak very much at all. So yeah, both players are doing pretty well. Neither player is leaking a whole lot. So yeah, both players getting their round 6 ninja for the blacks. And will we see any blacks from Mark? No, he's not sending anything. So Smurf can just be a little bit greedy. His defense, as of right now, would not no lives lost blacks. And since it's round 6 and he's still going eco, I think he's going for an eco strat. No farms. Yeah. So Mark defending the blacks perfectly well, and Smurf just being a little bit greedy. Mark is letting Smurf get a pretty good eco right now. And yeah, so round 8, will we see any regrows? I think Mark should definitely send some regrow blacks and whites, because Smurf, that would force him to get a lot of defense, unless he wants to leak down to like 80 lives or less, which is what would happen with the defense that he has right now. But neither player electing to send any regrows. So yeah, Smurf is saying to regrow Yellow Rush, and it's true, that defense can't hold regrow yellows, but the only people who regrow Yellow Rush are going to be the quick battles people. And you know how quick battles people are really good? Well, yeah. That's why. They always know how to make you leak. With regrow yellows on Mondrian, that's one of the prime examples. So Mark is getting more 0-0 ninjas. He kind of has them all spread across the map. So regrows, they might do some damage. But as Smurf is going eco, sending any regrows would kind of ruin his eco. So I don't expect to see any rainbow rushes by either player, because Smurf hasn't really sent a lot of eco recently, so Mark has no reason to believe that Smurf is being overly greedy. So yes, we are seeing neither player rush. And Smurf sending some Chris Berry eco. What that's going to do is it's going to force Mark to keep his mortar aimed at the player sent path. Meanwhile, the AI leads are just going to do some damage, or if not some damage, it'll make Mark buy more defense, which is what he did. He got a 3rd cluster bomb, and I'm not really sure why. He definitely could have just gotten a higher level ninja to deal with the blacks and zebras of the AI balloons, which is what he really needs, and a 3rd cluster isn't going to change the fact that the bombs need to have the blacks and zebras popped. So either way, you're spending money, but with a ninja, you are actually going to defend everything. Rather than the 3rd bomb, you're still going to need to get even more defense after that. So Mark does get up the Banana Republic, so he's probably going to save up for a 4th tier farm after that. Or it looks like he's getting another farm. I don't know why. Once you get the 3-0 farm, it's really usually the best idea to save up for the 4th tier farm as quick as possible. And yeah, so Smurf is basically telling Mark that it's either Mark dying to AI or Smurf dying to late game ZOMGs, because late game ZOMGs on this map are particularly hard. And I've heard people say that it's impossible. I don't think it's quite impossible, but it's really, really hard. And I don't know if Smurf can do it. Like, I know Smurf is a really good player, but you never know. Late game ZOMGs are really powerful, especially when you get up to around 36 and above. And Mondrian being the short map, relatively short map that it is, the ZOMGs, you can send them all the way up to probably round 38, and they still have time to get to the exit. And that's another thing that makes other maps like Snowy Castle really hard to defend. It's just the ZOMGs, they're just so, they have so much health that it's really hard to defend. So Mark moving his mortar for round 19 AI, and he gets the 4th tier farm. So Smurf sending some grouped blacks to exploit the fact that Mark has moved his mortar, and Mark having to do a lot of mortar micro there to make sure he doesn't die. And round 20, lots and lots of zebras here, and he gets a 4th tier bomb, and balloons are still leaking through. So, oh, there's some balloons getting spot, and he's going to die. So that was, yeah, there's not really much I can really say about that. Mark died to round 20. The zebras from round 20, the rainbows, there were so many zebras filling the screen that he really couldn't really do much. And by the time he did get the 4th tier bomb, it was already too late. Anyways, that ties up the series at 2-2. So moving on to game 5. Alright, so we are in game 5, and looks like Mark has picked Zen. So Zen is the new starting map for Season 9, so I guess we're ending off with the new starting map, which is pretty interesting, I guess. So both players should be going farms. I mean, they both like to farm. I'd be surprised if either player went eco. And it looks like Mark is sending the Space Blues, indicating he's going for the early farms here. Probably 252 eco, 254 actually. And Smurf is going to leak 3 lives, not going to matter, except now Mark only has to defend to round 40, and then he'll be fine. But I don't think it's going to get to round 40, so it shouldn't be a big deal. So round 4, both players still have a 2-0 attack, and Smurf sending some pinks. Now Mark gets the 3-0 attack, and so does Smurf. I think Smurf definitely could have saved his money there and just been a little bit greedy, gotten his farms a little earlier, because Mark wasn't sending any pinks. And if you keep your 2-0 attack, you're basically either forcing Mark to waste money on pinks, or you can get your farm up earlier. It's one or the other, and it's a win-win either way. So, yeah, but Smurf just gets the 3-0 attack. I guess he's trying to be a little safe or something. I don't even know. So Mark gets the 2-0 farm before the Ring of Fire. Smurf can only afford a single farm because he went a little bit more Bloon eco. And Bloon eco is very interesting because once you get about 335 eco, you start farming, you get 1 farm, you can afford the Ring of Fire by round 6. So Mark and Smurf have a difference of about, I think, 80 eco. So over time, Smurf will catch up in farms, most likely, unless Mark can do a really good job farming. And I won't put that past him. Both these players are pretty good. So we see Mark is ahead by about 1 farm, and Smurf gets the second 2-0 farm, and so does Mark. So Mark maintaining his lead in farms, but Smurf does have the more the higher Bloon eco, so he will catch up on farms eventually, as long as he doesn't like waste his money on any rushes or anything like that. So both players getting up their ninjas for round 10. Looks like Mark is spending less on his defense. He's only getting a single 0-0 ninja instead of Smurf's 2 ninjas. So that's $500 he can spend on farms rather than saving some lives, which I think for Mark it was definitely worth it, because now he can pull even more ahead in farm economy, and I guess just maintain his 1 farm lead. And 1 farm is pretty important. Like, it may not seem like very much, but when you get to round 20, both players are going to send BFBs, and their Bloon Eco will be 0. So in that case, more farms is more economy, no matter what. So by having an extra farm, you're getting an extra couple of bananas per round, and then you also have that sell price of $1,000, well, 900 and something dollars, but basically $1,000 that the other player doesn't have. So you really want to be up in farms when you're going into round 20. So round 16, it looks Smurf is actually sending a rush with leads and ceramics, but it was a pretty small rush, and Mark is just going to leak a little bit to that. And so, in my opinion, it wasn't really worth it. When you're going for rushes, when you're down on farms, you really want to make sure that the other person either dies or they have to sell farms to defend it. Because otherwise, it's pretty much a waste of your money. Like, yes, Mark did leak, but how much is that really going to matter? Is it worth it? Because he wasted, like, over $1,000 on that rush. There's like 2 sets of leads and like 3 ceramics. That's $1,300 if I can do any math whatsoever. And looks like both players getting up their round 18 defense. Both players should be fine. And neither player sends any Moabs. And yeah, we're just waiting for round 20 at this point. Smurf has 3 3-0 attacks all clustered in the same area. Mark just bought his 3rd, but it's a little bit spread out. And it doesn't really matter too much. I guess Smurf's attack will do a little bit better job because it's around a bend, but it's not going to matter that much. And so Mark is sending 1 BFB, while Smurf is sending 2. And I think Mark is going to have to sell some farms to afford the Savo, and he does. And that's because he bought some farms a little bit later, like around 18, 19, around that area. Looks like he Maelstorms a little bit early there, and yeah, he's going to have to Maelstorm twice. And will he Maelstorm on time this time? And it looks like that is perfect timing there. And the Moab that Smurf sent, he says by accident, well, it's actually going to cause Mark to use another Maelstorm, so accidents can work out for you. It caused Mark to waste some money there. And he's leaking to AI, all the way down to 14 lives, so now he can't leak at all, otherwise he will die. Looks like he's selling pretty much all his farms to afford that next Sabo. And will he Maelstorm all this? There's lots of Bloons getting by, and he's going to have to Maelstorm quite a bit here. And it looks like he didn't even need that other Maelstorm there. Oh, can he fit the tack? Because otherwise, he'll be going against the... Well, he'd be going with the grain, and Maelstorms just aren't very good when you're going with the grain. He's Maelstorming a lot, wasting a lot of money. Can he fit the tack? It looks like he can't fit it, so he has to go with the grain, and that's not going to be enough. And he is going to die. So that is Smurf winning 3-2 in the series. Both players played really well this series, except for Mondrian, but hey, it's Mondrian. What can you do? You can check out my channel in the description, and maybe I'll be doing another commentary on this channel soon. And yeah, I'll see you guys later.